Greetings everyone, I'm back with part 2 of this glorious duology, where I analyze the shortcomings and possible ways to fix the desert areas in Golden Sun the Broken Seal. Today's topic will be about the Lamakan desert near Lavaro. Now the desert itself is not nearly as bad as the desert I previously covered being the Suhala desert, but it still has a cornucopia of flaws in it that I'll discuss in today's video. Right before I get into things and analyze where the Lamakan desert flops, be sure to click the card above me if you haven't seen the last part of this duology, as I would highly recommend that you do so to have the full context for this video. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the video. For those of you who don't know about the Lamakan desert and its gimmick, it's the first desert you encounter in the game and the progenitor of the out-of-place gimmicks found in deserts like Lamakan and Suhala, for example. The Lamakan desert is located at the southwest foot of the Kirin Mountains, and it's also one of the portions of the Silk Road merchant caravan route that extends to Xi'an to the east and Calais and Tobi to the west. Now the desert has always had a reputation of being very hot, but after the Mount Aleph explosion, synergy stones showered across the entire world and somehow fell into the desert, which caused an evil influence of some sort to grip the whole desert, to the point to where the heat was cranked up to where not even normal humans could pass by and get through the desert, thus putting the whole Silk Road to a halt. There are many oases within the desert, but those can only be seen by a synergist who happens to be able to enhance their perception or use the vision synergy. Otherwise, you won't be able to really make it through the desert, as far as we know in terms of Golden Sun 1. Now here are a few interesting trivia and facts that you probably didn't know about the Lamakan desert. Did you know the Lamakan desert likely takes its name from the Taklakam desert in western China? This desert was also along the Silk Road. It's in the center of the Asian continent and deathly dry to the point that caravans would parch themselves at any oasis they found. Surprisingly, the Taklakam desert is one of the coldest deserts in the world, as opposed to the Lamakan, the hottest desert in Wayward. Did you also know in Golden Sun The Lost Age, the player can reach the Lamakan desert on the world map using cheat codes? It can even be entered, but will strangely take the player to Yampi Desert instead. Entering Suhala Desert in this way has the same effect. As I explained previously and earlier in the video, the whole gimmick of this desert is that it's extremely hot due to evil spirits taking over the desert, go figure. And you need to use your newly learned reveal synergy as a way to cool off by means of uncovering and discovering oases. But be careful, you might not always find an oasis. You might find yourself an optional mini-boss that's hiding within the oasis, or a sandworm that's also hiding within the sand. The gimmick itself is not too complicated because it's just merely the lube or the precursor for the much more punishing gimmick located in the Suhala Desert, which I covered previously in the last video. And if you haven't already checked it out, there should potentially be a card up ahead, and if you don't see that card, then you can always go back to the beginning of the video or check the comments down below and I'll leave a link down to it. While the actual desert gimmick itself, or the Lamakan desert, isn't as bad as the Suhala desert, and it's actually a pretty decent, nice precursor compared to the Suhala desert, where you can really tell they experimented and thought out pretty well about this whole desert, and they really wanted to try something new by using the reveal synergy in a pretty creative way. There are some flaws and issues about it, since this was their first time experimenting with the deserts in Golden Sun. So allow me to tell you what exactly makes them fall flat, and I'll explain it in this next section. Now, outside of the obvious reasons of where it falls flat, being it's an experimental gimmick and they never used it before, it's the matter of the fact that it kind of ties back into the overarching argument that I talked about last video, which is it's an isolated gimmick, an isolated one-time use mechanic, never to be brought up again anywhere else in the game. And I think that really kills the potential of what a mechanic like this could do later on in the series, since it's only brought up one time and never expanded upon in future games or future areas within said game, being Golden Sun the Broken Seal. Now, this wouldn't be such a problem if the oases in the desert or for the gimmick for the Lamakan Desert, are a bit contrived in terms of difficulty. While yes, it is creative, but it's also pretty contrived in the sense that it doesn't really add any true difficulty. It's kind of just a buffer of your time. You're not really solving a crazy puzzle. If anything, you're just staying in a spot for a few more seconds so you don't lose health. While it isn't nearly as punishing as the Suhala Desert, where it just kicks you out if you don't do the gimmick in time, it kind of just feels like a timer to push you through the desert, which can be seen as a good thing, but it's also just contrived difficulty. It's just difficulty for the sake of difficulty. There's nothing really stand out or rememberable about it outside of this was a mechanic, this was a gimmick, and it was kind of annoying. But in the next section, I'll be sure to give this desert the credit and respect it deserves for at least trying something new, and that said new thing not being too punishing of a mechanic. Now, what the Lamakan Desert has gotten right compared to the Suhala Desert is that it at least makes an attempt to try to make an identity for itself, and it doesn't feel as hollow as the Suhala Desert. While the tornadoes are rememberable in their own annoying and repetitive fashion and way, eventually in the grander spectrum of the game, they get forgotten. At least with this desert, you remember, oh, I used my synergy in this desert. I used the reveal synergy, a newly learned synergy. And while it's cool you get to use Dows again, Dows is a pretty lame synergy when we really look at it. It's like, would you rather use reveal or Dows for a puzzle? It's like, give me reveal, you know, that makes sense for a puzzle. We newly acquired this synergy. I also like how they were able to use the reveal synergy in a way to act as a bit of a timer to not be in the desert for too long or to get too comfortable in it, since you also have to keep track of your heat and sweat meter, something which I will definitely get into a little later on in this whole explanation and video. But the sweat meter is actually a decent mechanic. While it isn't the best and I truly despise going through it, at least I don't have to play along with the mechanic. While yes, it is true, if I don't play along with the mechanic, my entire party will be essentially on the brink of death with all of them having 1 HP. I can at least heal up everybody and then go through the desert how I am, since your sweat meter resets the minute you all pass out from heat stroke from the desert. It's also really nice how you can run away from the mini bosses that the game throws at you in those areas versus being required to fight them like the Suhala Desert. And overall, the whole reveal synergy gimmick is just a better gimmick than the likes of Suhala, where you have to go through tornadoes, tornado lizards that are required, and you gotta fight them, and they're pretty darn strong too. It had great concepts and ideas, but a terrible execution overall. And as I did in a previous video, I'm going to give out some rough concepts, critique, and ideas on how exactly can we make this desert a lot better than it is right now. The Lamakan Desert needs a lot more gambling factors into it. While there's the basic enemy and then, oh, you use your reveal synergy and guess what you find? Either an oasis or some form of mini boss monster or a really strong enemy. And while that's alright and cool, you should throw some more treasure in there, really incentivize the player to use reveal a lot more, which could also inspire positive memories about the desert instead of it being such a drag and a slog. Be sure to add in the good old classic Golden Sun puzzles in there as well, kind of like a desert chest or something along those lines, where you gotta play chest against the enemy, and that in itself could be a very memorable thing, especially if you set it up to where the team gets to meet up against Sataros and Minardi and their whole party, and they have to go at it in the whole game of desert chest. It'd be a very memorable moment in the story, and it would honestly make for a very interesting time where you're all both using your synergy, kind of similar to Colossus, but on a more interactive scale, where you're legit just playing checkers or chess through synergy. And that's just one idea I had for the whole Lamakan Desert. If you have any more ideas that you want me to say in a future video or bring up in the near future, then be sure to leave a comment down below in the video telling me what exactly do you think would fix the Lamakan Desert or the Suhala Desert, and how would they exactly become more memorable through your solution. both deserts make sense in a story and lore sense, there also comes a question that pops up in everybody's head when playing through both deserts. Were they really necessary? Why not just keep it down to 1 instead of 2 and have the gimmicks be completely limited, if not taken off entirely? I understand wanting to experiment and trying new content, that's what this whole channel is, but you can only play test something for so long without thinking, maybe this might be a little inconvenient to our player, and how will this hold up for future generations, because future proofing is a major thing as well. This seems like a classic case of Camelot wanting to eat their cake and have it too. They wanted to have 2 deserts with 2 hit or miss gimmicks, and they just didn't land well because they only used it once in isolation and never brought it up again. And I think that's the biggest killer for any of these gimmicks. These gimmicks could have been probably the best mechanics in the game if they weren't just used one time and only one time. So in conclusion, there should have only been 1 desert in Golden Sun 1, the Broken Seal, and the gimmicks should have either been play tested to the point to where it's included in more than one area, so that way the player can get more familiar with it and not be thrown off by the sudden appearance of a never seen or heard before gimmick, which only shows up for one area, of course. We have now reached the conclusion of this grand 2-part series where I harshly critique and analyze the 2 desert areas found in Golden Sun, the Broken Seal. If you enjoyed today's video and any content similar to it, then consider joining the Steely Troop by subscribing to the channel and leaving either a like or a comment on this video telling me your thoughts on the Golden Sun Desert and anything surrounding this series. One more thing before I go, if you want to know whenever I uploaded a new video or gone live, then join the Steely Troop official Discord server where you can interact with me in the community more while having the previous benefit of knowing when I've uploaded a video or go live on twitch.tv/TBAisen. And as always, Steelies, don't get caught.